If you're someone that gets gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, abdominal discomfort, everybody talks about inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome. Doctors may tell you, oh, you could have Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, or again, it's IBS. But there is something else, a few other things it could be. But here's something that isn't too uncommon that we have a patient recently that found out that they had, and that is SIBO. So what is SIBO? Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or you know someone that does, or you have some of those symptoms and you're not sure what you have, well, let's talk about what it is, what causes it, what we can do for it, how they diagnose it, yada, yada, yada. So this is a dysbiosis of your gut microbiome, meaning we have abnormal bacteria in the small intestine that are typically located in the large intestine. And these bacteria are known as facultative anaerobes for the most part. Some examples would be the overgrowth of E. coli or Aeromonas or Klebsiella species. And when we say a facultative anaerobe, that's just a fancy way of saying they can survive in many different environments in the presence of oxygen or without oxygen. And so, they can be kind of tough to get rid of. So what could have caused this in the first place? Well, they don't know the exact cause, as the etiology is unknown, of SIBO, but they have a hunch that it may be due to reduced acidity. So, typically it would be a more harsh environment, more acidic, and these bacteria wouldn't be able to grow in the small intestine. It could be reduced immune function. Typically you have immune cells that would be killing off these bacteria. It could be due to reduced gut motility or contractions, or what we know as peristalsis, how our gut moves food through the GI tract, right? And so it could be a slower transit of food. If it's moving really slow, well, then it's giving these bacteria a chance to accumulate in the gut, and we even can have retrograde contraction, abnormal contractions, retrograde meaning backwards. So from the large intestine back into the small intestine. And so then you're getting these bacteria that normally would have been in the large intestine and should have just made their way out and through the sigmoid colon and through the anus eventually, are coming back into the small intestine, and they're causing problems. So how the hell do we get rid of these things, right? Now, first let's talk about how they diagnose it. So they'll do an aspirate culture. We'll take fluid from duodenal aspirate culture, more specifically, and that's part of the small intestine. It's the first part of the small intestine, the duodenum, and they will take a fluid culture from it, and they'll see how many of these specific species of bacteria in there, and if there are anywhere from 10 to the third power to 10 to the fifth power colony forming units of these undesirable bacteria, well, that's diagnostic for SIBO. So that's something that they could do, but what's a less invasive and really the least invasive and simplest way to try and diagnose SIBO is through a breath test. And so they'll do a hydrogen or a methyl breath test, and they'll see indirectly if there are abnormal levels of bacteria in your gut. And when you have a negative breath test, at some point they'll say, okay, you no longer have this. So what can we do about it? Well, antibiotics are the first thing you would think of, right? I mean, you have an overgrowth of undesirable bacteria. But one issue with antibiotics is typically that if we take them, we can have negative side effects, and we have it affecting systemic circulation, entering systemic circulation and affecting the entire body. Maybe you don't want to kill bacteria all over the place, right? Because there are good bacteria in the gut, and we talk about probiotics and bifidobacterium and lactobacillus and streptococcus species, certain ones, and these are good, and they're important for digestion and immune function and brain function and levels of our happy hormones and our metabolism and fat loss and muscle growth and immunity and all sorts of things. So we don't want to go just killing tons of bacteria. But what is unique about the medication that they'll typically give a SIBO patient is they stay relatively local. At least some of the top ones, they're poorly absorbed through the gut, meaning they don't reach systemic circulation, and so they don't have this ubiquitous effect throughout the entire body, right? Meaning all over the place, right? So that is a pretty good thing. But there are other natural treatments and adjunctive treatments, meaning alongside the medications, things that we can do to improve their efficacy or on their own to help in themselves. Now, these aren't proven treatments, right? And so, they shouldn't be looked at as the primary treatments. Again, it is specific antibiotics like rifaximin, right, for example, but they can definitely help, and preliminary research shows some serious promise for them. So what we have are probiotics. Taking probiotics alongside the antibiotics can help to maintain a healthy gut microbiome and actually improve the efficacy of the antibiotics while you're taking them, right? So that's something that might be useful. Prebiotics as well, and those are things that feed probiotics, right? It would be something like soluble fiber in some way, and psyllium husk is an example that we've talked about here many times at When Wellness, but prebiotics pretty much come from fruits and vegetables and carbohydrates, and they're things that have soluble fiber, again, that will feed the bacteria. They eat them, they produce what are called postbiotics and acids and enzymes and short-chain fatty acids, and these are what affect all the levels of immunity and fat burning and muscle growth and all that kind of stuff that we talk about all the time. So you have prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. Now, it's not a bad idea to maybe take a combination of the three, as both prebiotics and probiotics have shown some benefit, at least in terms of preliminary research. But we also have other herbal preparations, and we have fecal microbiota transplants, microbiota transplants, however you want to say it. They're taking poop from somebody that has a healthy gut, and they're transplanting it into your gut, right? And so now you're getting those healthy bacteria, and maybe they can help your body to boost immunity and fight off the bad bacteria. Who knows whatever mechanism they're going to help, but they have shown some success in preliminary research. So fecal microbiota transplant, I think, is definitely something to talk to your doctor about. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you had SIBO, right? And especially if you don't want to go right for the medication. Not to say that you shouldn't, but herbal preparations such as daikinchudo, that's a traditional Japanese herbal preparation, and I believe it has ginger, dried ginger, and panaxinoto ginseng, fruit, and sugar. It's like xyloxamine fruit or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but that's what it's made of, and that's been shown to help to reduce symptoms and help to kill off some bacteria. At least it's been used traditionally to do so. But again, these aren't necessarily gold standard treatments. Ursodiol is another one. I believe that's typically used for gallstones, gallbladder stuff, bile flow issues in the liver, and that's shown somewhat of success. But if you could have a few different types of positive breath tests, and if you had a hydrogen positive, the other one would be a methyl breath test, and if you had a hydrogen positive, there are a few herbs specifically that might be good, and those include oregano, berberine, neem, and also garlic would be good. And garlic's great for so many things. It's blood flow, and probably most heralded for its role in immune function. But definitely something to consider if you have SIBO. So let's see, what else do we want to? Diet. So what kind of foods can we eat if we have SIBO? And have any really diets been proven to help? Well, most of the evidence is pretty weak and anecdotal in terms of dietary interventions for improving SIBO. But if you did want to try something, the low FODMAP, that's low fermented oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. We know what oligosaccharides, monosaccharides, disaccharides, anytime you hear saccharides, those are sugars, right? They're just different degrees of length and size of sugars, so low amounts of sugars. But also, what are polyols? Well, a simple way of saying what they are is sugar alcohols, right? So sugar alcohols, anything with sugar in the name. So low sugar. Another one is just a low sugar diet in general. There's another name for it. It's basically a form of low carbohydrates. I forget. It's a lot of information that to go over today, but low amounts of sugar. And the other one is a elemental diet, and that's a pure liquid diet, which you'll see in diverticulosis or diverticulitis, and if they have a flare up, and they'll have just liquid to kind keep the bowels from getting too crazy. But I don't really think that's personally a great idea to go to places like that. I mean, maybe if it was a flare up, but I'd rather get to the root of the problem, and I would rather try and correct it than going for treating symptoms. And that's always an issue with medication too. But maybe you could have the medication at first, and maybe that could help, and then you could get them a chiropractor. So everything I pretty much condone is natural. Trying to get it done using the innate power of your body and proper food and lifestyle modifications that can make a massive difference, and most people don't realize. But it's those herbal preparations, the fecal microbiota transplant. Those are all great things. Aside from a low FODMAP, the low sugar with the complex carbs. Complex carbs are good for you. They feed your gut. So again, I wouldn't look into that, but you could look into the low FODMAP. And aside from the elimination, aside from the liquid diet, elemental, you could go for an elimination diet. An elimination diet they use for a lot of different things. From ADHD to gut stuff. And here in SIBO. And an elimination diet basically says, okay, I'm just gonna take a bunch of foods out, and I'm gonna slowly introduce them. I eliminate a bunch of foods, and then I slowly introduce them one at a time, and I see what's been causing my symptoms, what's been causing this gas and bloating and diarrhea and abdominal pain, right, and constipation. And so, that's another good option that you could try. So if you're late to the party here, and you're somebody that you're a naturopath type person, you don't want to go for the medication. Something you could try is fecal microbiota transplant, probiotics, prebiotics. Daikon Chudo is a traditional Japanese herbal preparation. It consists of dried ginger, ginseng, fruit and specific fruit and sugar, and your sodiol has even been used, and that is something that they use for gallstones. They use, for bile obstructive flow in the liver, things of that nature. But herbal preparations, if you're hydrogen positive in that breath test, would be berberine, neem, and oregano, and you're looking for garlic as well in that group. So, all stuff that you can try and just kind of listen to your body in terms of the diet, right? Now let's kind of examine, why are they saying low sugar in all these things? Why are they saying this low FODMAP? There's a lot of low sugar foods. They're eliminating a bunch of them, right? Why this in something where we have the overgrowth of bacteria? Well, it's because bacteria love sugar, right? And this is one reason that people with diabetes are at an increased risk for infection, right? They get crud in the blood. They get the buildup of all this sugar in the blood. And so these things can come and nom, 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 and they can eat on it, and it's a festering environment that we don't want. And so it typically bodes well to never have anything with added sugar, of course, right? But to limit your sugar intake in general. Maybe, focus on healthy fats and lean protein. And your carbs, get them from leafy greens, and if you want some starchy ones like sweet potatoes, and they're full of vitamins, right? And have maybe right after you work out, maybe replenish the glycogen stores. But it's all, we could bring everything full circle. But that's something to keep in mind, right? It's not just for body composition with the sugar. It's something that is creating a desirable environment for potentially harmful bacteria and things in your body to grow and feed off of, right? So that's what we got for you guys today. It was a lot, but I really wanted to cover this because I've seen it a few times, and SIBO is a really interesting one because it's commonly misdiagnosed. It's commonly misdiagnosed for something like inflammatory bowel disease and irritable bowel syndrome. So I hope that was useful if you're somebody that has SIBO. Before we even say happy birthday, today is 9/11. So let's have a moment of silence here. For all those people who lost someone, and that was 22 years ago today. So I remember I actually stayed home from school that day.